lawn.
Hello and welcome back, you lovelies. We are ready to go, ready to strike with Gunvolt in the color of Azure. This kind of makes sense, I think. Azure Striker Gunvolt, easy mode category, being ran by the ever so incredible TempestMask1000. Tempest, take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, Ramen. I appreciate that, and shout out to Floha sitting with us as well, and all that wonderful, wonderful stuff. Thank you, Indiethon, for having me. I know we're running a little bit behind, so I'm just going to make this as quick as possible. This is Azure Striker Gunvolt, and this is the first time I'm showing off this particular category, so this is going to be easy mode. And to display that, I'm actually going to have to go into other game modes right here, and with a little bit of this and a bit of that, the data is deleted and the showcase is ready to begin. So we'll count that timer down and let's get going in 3, 2, 1, strike. All right.
Good luck on the run.
Oh, thank you very much. So, you're probably wondering, what the heck is this game all about? Well, this was developed by Inti, a wonderful Japanese developer who you might also recall for having worked on Mega Man 0 ZX, ZX Advent, 9, 10, and a few others in collaboration with Capcom for the longest time. As a result of this, when they essentially started making their own games, they decided to... Oop, that was a little bit of an accident right there. Oh, that's never happened before. I swear, I actually have never pulled that off in the elevator.
Tempest said the thing.
I did say the thing. Okay, as I was about to say. So they decided to take that experience of having worked on the Zero ZX games and turned it into a little something of a spiritual successor in this. Now, it's not your typical Mega Man. There's a bit of a difference in the damage output here, particularly in that what you're normally supposed to do is tag enemies with your firearm, and then, as you can see, Gunvolt wields the power of electricity, so he uses the tagging to then zap enemies down, because the lightning then hones in on them. But then he also uses what's called the flash field to do this, and this is where easy mode becomes absolutely hilarious, because, well, easy mode buffs up a lot of things about GV. And as you just saw right there, I decimated that first little mini-boss. I'll explain that properly soon. For now, though, what you're seeing is a few things. You got the health meter and the score meter on the upper left. We also got that little percentage gauge, which also corresponds to that little semicircular gauge right under GV himself whenever he expends his EP. The EP gauge basically represents how much electrical power he has in him, and if that were to go down, I will enter the cooldown state, which I do want to try and avoid. And then there's also the kudos meter, which is that little numbers gauge that you were seeing under the health as well. And that's more for score purposes. It's really not all that important for speedrun purposes, but if I do happen to reach at least 1,000 of it, some J-pop will be playing. Don't expect that to happen much, but overall, it's a fun little thing about the Gunvolt games, that there's quite a bit of vocal tracks. It's all part of the planning process. In fact, I do believe it is one of the earliest things that they usually discuss or figure out before going further on with the game itself. It's kind of fun that way. Alright, so now that we've beaten the first stage, we have saved Jewel, and I did want to have a quick little conversation with her like so, as we enter our first not Robot Master stage, but rather our first Sumeragi Adept stage, which we're going to be doing Merrick, and the reason for that is he's one of the easier bosses to handle, but also with a category such as this one, let's just say that I'm basically trying to get a little something out of the way. Now, I can't really then again, I guess I can't really do it here in easy mode, unfortunately, because okay, we'll admit this is a bit of a brain fart on my part. So, normally in this stage, we usually like to go to him because there's a stage skip that you can perform But in order to do so, there's one of two ways. One is a frame-perfect trick, which I have not mastered. By no means am I an expert with it, but essentially what you saw me do in the elevator was... Oh, that's unfortunate, though. I'm stuck in the elevator. Let me see if I can get out. Nah, I gotta wait for it. That's a little bit of time lost, but... Oh well, I'm not quite used to going through this stage because, again, I'm usually skipping this part. But, as I was about to say... the idea is that by activating a special move and then inputting an extra frame, or a particular frame, by pressing the jump button, Gunvolt can essentially do a little buffered hop or something like that, in which, after the special move ends, the jump happens, and then you can get up and stuff. And why did his special move activate again? Well, that's unfortunate. Oh, I think I see what's going on here. Yeah, I'll be honest, that's probably not the last time that's going to happen. So, normally what I'm supposed to do by now is enter a state called Anthem, which... That's essentially one of the two mainstay features of Gunvolt games, where if you die, there's a chance that you can... Yeah, okay, this is the controller itself. Very sorry for that, folks. I'm gonna try and hopefully we won't have to experience that all that much, but yeah, it seems like something's up with my right stick. I've been actually noticing that while I've been playing VR chat, so yeah, sad to say, I didn't think it was actually coincidentally the controller or whatnot, but yeah. Like I said, I'll work through it. This is not a bad run by any means, though, to have that sort of issue happen to you. For now, let's just go ahead and... Let's see here. I believe I was talking about Anthem, right. So, Anthem is when Gunvolt dies, and what potentially happens is Lumen, this J-pop cyber diva, will revive you. And in that case, Gunvolt will have infinite air hops and air dashes, which is especially helpful for just busting down anything. He's also got unlimited EP as well, so there's that too. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't die again. So that is one thing to be considering. But other than that, here's Merrick. And one of the nice things about these bosses from Gunvolt games is that Inti Creates always throws in these design and name schemes with the very character themselves. And, well, in the case of Gunvolt 1, it's the 7 Deadly Sins, which is really cool. And in Merrick's case, that would be Sloth. So, I want you all to try and figure out whose theme or whose deadly sin might be who. In the meantime, what you just saw me do right there, the boss, is one of the perks on running easy mode. So you're probably thinking, okay, something's up by now, and I should probably explain. So, easy mode not only makes Gunvolt's attack power majorly buffed up, but also gives him a ton, and I mean a ton of EP. You're probably not going to see that gauge run out anytime through this run. Chances are that if it does, it's either from an attack or circumstance that would cause it to run out and stuff like that. Otherwise, yeah, no, I'm going to have so much EP, which is also helpful for my Prevasion ability, something that you actually wouldn't be seeing if I were running this game on speedrun mode. So, Prevasion is a little thing where, depending on what sort of accessory I have, Gunvolt can run through enemies and not take any damage, but this does cost a little bit of EP. So, I can just do this to my leisure through easy mode, no problem. But now for the most hilarious part about that attack buff. So the flash field itself is normally supposed to deal more damage when you tag an enemy and have the lightning hone into it, which is how I'm going to have to handle this mini-boss, the spider tank, right here. But, in easy mode, I can total, and the most amount of attack that Gunvolt can do, period, is just by holding the flash field and having the flash field aura in motion. For some reason, the flash field does a ungodly amount of damage to anything that
goes into when Gunvolt is moving. So you're definitely going to see me total a lot of stuff, including these boxes, which normally are a bit of a pain. But since this is, again, easy mode, then yeah, you're basically going to see a lot of things become comical. Unfortunately, the black-colored boxes, though, those are indestructible, so I can't really do anything about them. That said, that was a very good global cycle because the dropping of the boxes are on a global timer. So with that, yeah, it's basically that. Other than that, though, yeah, you're going to see this game be made trivial with the fact that I am, again, running this on easy mode. But it's also probably one of the fun things about it, too. Just the fact that because Gunvolt is a game that does reward high challenge, high skill, and all that stuff. If you feel a little bit daunted by the normal way of playing this, then easy mode is definitely the way to be. And it's also very accessible. While it is not, to my knowledge, available on the original 3DS release, because Gunvolt first came out for 3DS in 2014, it is still available on the PC version, which is how I'm playing, and then the other console versions as well, so Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox, which actually the Xbox version for Gunvolt 1 came out last year as a way to sort of hype up the release of Gunvolt 3 for Xbox. Anyway, that was Viper, and his sin was wrath, because he is a very angry boy. And Jewel, the girl we saved earlier, he had a crush on, so now he wanted us dead for that. But unfortunately, we kind of had a good reason to save her. So, thing is, the world of Gunvolt takes place in an undisclosed time of the future where society has become aware of the existence of adepts, which are these beings that are similar to mutants in X-Men, except with the major difference here being instead of mutant-based powers, the powers are actually based off of what's called Septima, a supernatural energy of sorts, connected to the whole life wave theory and whatnot. You know, your typical fantasy sort of stuff. And generally speaking, adepts each have their own powers. But Gunvolt here is actually an artificial adept who's created as part of Project Gunvolt by the Sumeragi group, as a sort of way to make use of the first adept's power, and basically provide unlimited energy for the entire nation. Of course, since the Sumeragi group being a major power conglomerate that even dwarfs that of the Japanese government in terms of influence, and are essentially trying to keep the peace, unfortunately, in doing so, they kind of step on the feet of innocent adept citizens, and so Gunvolt here is essentially a freedom fighter trying to work with the Quill organization, the Quorum of Unrestricted Information Law and Liberty. I think I might have gotten those last two L's a little reversed, but that's still the same thing. And, well, we're just trying to put an end to Sumeragi. That's the general gist. Jewel is an adept that has the power of the Muse, which is what Lumen is based off of. She's basically a septimal projection of a different side of Jewel's personality, and yeah. Her songs have the ability to not only locate adepts, making it easy for Sumeragi to find them, but her power is just practically busted too. So yeah, if you get that whole idea, then yeah. So it's with that in mind that we kind of just decided, instead of ending her, which was the original mission within our time in Quill in the first stage of the game, Gunvolt decided to just give her a second chance, much like how his former boss Asimov did him. Alright, so now we're moving on to the third adept of this run, which is going to be Carrera. And we're going to say goodbye to him. Yeah, like I said, easy mode trivializes boss fights, which is a shame, because the bosses have some really nice moves, and let me tell you, there are some pretty fun fights. But yeah, Carrera is greed. So he's somebody that just wants a challenge he wants to find strong opponents to fight to satiate his need for battle. Basically Vegeta, in a way. But yeah, now that we've beaten 3 of the Sumeragi swordsmen, as they are called, we are now moving on to a mid-stage, which will also lock out me from doing any other stages until this one is done. This is important because this also is why I went with the particular stage order that I did. At the end of this level is a boss named Copen. Now, because the flash field will trivialize his fight, well, I think you all know what's going to happen. But just in case things go wrong, I'll explain why routing can normally be something considered in any sort of Gunvolt 1 run. Copen is more of a Mega Man boss or Mega Man inspired character than GV is, in that he actually gains the powers of other adepts. He's a non-adept himself, so instead of having a septimal power, he builds technology that allows him to acquire the septimal essence of others and uses that power himself. So, in doing so, he becomes essentially the not Mega Man of this game, and for his boss fight within this mid-stage, at least within this point of the story, he will use whatever abilities from whatever adepts we've defeated up till now. And Carrera's is usually the one that we want to have at least before we get to the mid-stage, so you can guarantee that we want to have Carrera within the optimal routing of the first half of the game, because his move, the Greed Snatcher, which is which is the move that Copen uses, is not only a fast move in general, but it also leaves him the most vulnerable for being attacked, which is good because then that means we don't really have to worry much. It's also a dangerous move too, though, in that if I get hit by one of those bullets, I go into a overstayed cooldown period or overclocked cooldown period where I can't use my flash field for, I would say, at least 30 seconds, maybe a little less than that. It's definitely not a good time. But it is still a very helpful move and one that we would prefer him to use. And yay, we got some J-pop going on. Sakura Efflorescence, and my controller glitch just decided to say no to that. I'm sorry, folks. I really didn't expect this to actually be a thing, but at least I get to show off the special moves because I suppose I wouldn't be doing so otherwise. So, yeah. Now, one other thing to mention is that if you do repeat attempts of this stage, and if you've defeated other adepts, by the way, hi Zonda, bye Zonda, Copen will now have access to their moves as well. That was Zonda, by the way. He was supposed to be the boss that we would have fought in this stage, except the whole idea is that Copen cuts in, and, well, now we don't have to. Good news, Zonda does reappear in the sequel game, I was going to say Mighty Gunvolt Burst. That's actually a spin-off game sequel to Gunvolt. I should have said Azure Striker Gunvolt 2, which is an amazing boss fight, by the way. But he also does appear in Mighty Gunvolt Burst, a spin-off game that released around the same time as Gunvolt 1 for 3DS, which is also made to other platforms. So yeah, definitely give it a try if you're all about the 8-bit classic-esque inspired platforming action. But yeah, here we go. I'm now moving on to the second group, or the remaining group of the Sumeragi adepts. And yeah, we're going into Stratos' stage, who, oh, by the way, Zonda does still have a 7 Deadly Sin theme, which was Lust. I figured I should at least clarify that one. But yeah, we're going to have a plant and insect themed stage. Anybody that might be insectophobic, please feel free to look away if you feel the need to. It's not all that bad though, and it's far from graphic. It's just the idea that in the second half of the stage we will have a swarm of flies sort of showing up potentially here and there. That is unless I do manage to avoid that entirely, which I have done before. Anyhow, this is a drug plant, and that right there, the giant artificial flower thing, is producing the chemical that we need to bust down. And I gotta, instead of flash fielding it, I actually have to shoot the thing open, because unfortunately the darts do more damage than the flash field apparently. So the thing about that boss fight is that normally I would have done a little bit of a setup to try and put Gunvolt as close to the ground as possible, but that wasn't too bad because I was still able to get to the door just as it finished opening. And really, because Astrosphere is sheerly outclassed by the buffed flash field movement, yeah, there's no real reason I needed to do that. But, yeah, no, there's just a lot of funny things about easy mode entirely. So, for now, like I said, I'm just trying to get through this second half of the stage. When you see me break down those little cyber wall things, those are called hexapiles, and there are the bugs. And apparently the controller wants to use Astrosphere to zap them. Sorry about that. I swear, this is definitely unprecedented for a speed run, which is also unfortunate because I might need to get this controller checked out. Sad to say, it's one of my favorite controllers, but oh well. Anyhow,
at the end of the day, you can always just attribute it to swag points being collected.
I guess you could say that. I mean, it is true. I mean, my fellow host friend here did notice that whenever I use a special move, it actually clocks the kudos into score, so there you go. Quite literally, it becomes swag points. Anyway, here's Stratos. We're not going to see him do any more bug shenanigans. In the normal run, there's a little bit of a setup that I would try to do to prevent him from using his special move, because all bosses in the game actually do have a special move, just like how Gunvolt has his own. And so, the cut-in does waste a little bit of time, but in the case of Stratos, he's one of those far and few bosses in GV1 where you can skip it if done a certain way. But we won't need to worry about that. Alright, only 2 more adepts left to go. Now, I will say that the one daunting fight that I'm going to be a little bit concerned about is actually what will be the last adept, because how she works is a little bit different from your typical boss fight. I'll explain when I get to there. For now, here's probably my favorite stage to speed through. That is the Utu Media Tower, where we will be facing off against Jota. By the way, Stratos is Gluttony. He is, unfortunately, a test subject within that facility who had been given way too much seed, and by destroying the one thing that essentially curbs that hunger, he goes out of control. And those fly power, and the insect power of his, those flies, they will consume anything, friend or foe. So, yeah, he's a bit of a lost case, sadly. Someone that, yeah, this game series actually can be a bit serious, because that's sort of the whole thing. Gunvolt definitely tries to take itself seriously. There's still quite a bit of anime behind it, though. So, overall, it's a charming game, but one that definitely tries to tell a story, and one that I can commend it for. Because, really, I enjoy the series quite a bit. There are at least 5 Gunvolt games, including 2 spin-offs, and that's not including the Mighty Gunvolt spin-off crossover games, but rather there's Gunvolts 1 to 3, as well as Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X 1 and 2, which those experiences are purely based on playing as Copen himself, because he's actually a playable character in Gunvolt 2, so there you go. But yeah, for now, this stage is all about trying to do as much platforming as I can, going from one light ring launcher to another, and just trying to phase through enemies, just go through it as fast as I can, basically. Not too much else to explain. So let's go ahead and talk about the boss fight coming up. Oh, come on. So, Jota himself is... Well, first of all, his sin is pride. I should probably mention that right now. He's got a lot of RNG, and he can do whatever attacks he so chooses to if I give him the chance. Chances are, though, I won't. Because, again, easy mode, flash field, buffed, and just like that, yeah, okay. So, basically, this is just going to be a game of whether or not he decides to move one place or another, and then, oops. Oh, that's a bit of a time loss, because, Astrosphere kinda did me over there. Okay, so unfortunately he did get to use his special move, at least his cutscene anyway, but hey, at least you get to see it yourself. Now you can take my word for it. But yeah, So one more adept to go, and then it'll be on to the late game stages. And again, I'm very sorry for this controller glitch. It's kind of awkward, not gonna lie. I feel like I should have seen this one coming, but I actually do have other controllers. I just, for the sake of trying to keep going with the run, I'm actually gonna roll with the punches instead of just having to ask for any pausing, because again, we are just a little tight on schedule, and I do want to be very, very fair to that. Coming up, though, is Elise, and this will be the last adept of the Sumeragi Swordsman. Now, her level is a bit of a daunting challenge for casual players and speedrunners alike. It's not necessarily to do with the level schematics. In fact, the level itself is pretty cool. As you're about to see, I'm entering this warehouse, which has an underground laboratory, which now has these colored lights. And the idea here is I need to tag these panels to then have my flash field electricity zap them and change the lighting in order to then disable these colored lasers. We also got a bit of a darkness gimmick going on too, so I gotta be a little bit memorizing, doing a little memorization for where exactly I'm going. The nice thing about the flash field though is, as you can see, it does provide me some light, so all is pretty good and stuff, but now we also got some zombies to deal with, so yeah. I mean, the flash field is making very short work of them, but yeah, if I were to get grabbed by one of those zombies, that would put me into an immediate cooldown state, which is never fun. And they also grab me. They just keep me in this grabbed position. Something I could be showing off, by the way, is that screen wrapping in this game is not quite traditional screen wrapping, and that rather objects can persist. I should probably, by the way, switch into my Naga weapon, which I'll explain how gun collecting works after this level. But overall, the idea is that if I were to shoot an object from a door transition just as I'm about to enter it, the pin itself will persist and effectively tag the target if done right. And it's a really nice trick for the normal run, but it's really not the most necessary here when the flash field can just completely bust down the hexapile and just have me move on. Now for the alarm rooms, because we have had a few of them, and how those work is whenever I engage an alarm room or a mob room, enemies will try to come at me, and I either have to defeat all of them, which there's a lower right hand counter for that sort of thing. But then there's also the idea of just destroying the alarm itself, which actually then stops the encounter right then and there. It's kind of funny how that works. Oh, hang on a second. Right, I'm supposed to activate the red light there. Whoops! It's been a while since I yeah. And another astrosphere. So I should mention special moves before I can continue with what I was talking about. And special moves, there's the skill gauge to my lower left, and there are 3 skill cards or skill points for Gunvolt to use, and each special ability he has equipped on him will have a number which tells you how many points that move might use. But yeah, for now, we're going to be fighting Elise, who is a bit of a 2 for the price of 1 boss, per se. And the issue is that well, first of all, her 7 deadly sin is envy, but really the issue is that we have 2 of them, and if I do not defeat them around the same time, one will revive the other, which is not fun. So I'm actually going to wait a little bit right here. Hopefully they will do the little mid... oh, no, that's actually not good. Okay, hang on a second. Alright, I'm just going to go for it. Alright. Ah, unfortunate. So yeah, that right there is a first-hand showing of Resurrection, and one of the things that we just overall try to avoid. Let's see if I can at least pull this one through, though. It's not as bad as long as they're attacking, but then again, yeah, there just happened again. So yeah, as you can see, the flash field, while the most powerful thing, it still requires me to be very careful because, as I just demonstrated right there... yeah, no. The game won't have that. You gotta actually take them out around the same time. And that's the petrification attack. That's why I was trying to be very careful of that earlier. But luckily, my EP recovery is just as overclocked as everything else about GV. Okay, this time for sure. And that time, I used Astrosphere intentionally. Whew, alright. And that right there is why this stage is a bit of a nightmare for casual and speedrun players alike. It's still a really creative boss though, and conceptually one of my favorites. Also a shout out to Mega Man ZX Advent's bosses Argoyle and Ugoyle as well as Rosespark. And I love Argoyle and Ugoyle, so any shout out to them gets a thumbs up from me. But yeah, okay, we are now done with the Sumeragi Swordsman and we are moving into the late game stages, which means there will be 4 levels to go, and then that'll be that. And so, we're going to go through what is the shortest level of any Gunvolt late game to date. And how this is going to go is we've got another one of those Mantis tanks, those giant green things that I encountered in the intro level. Except this one is red. And also got a few extra upgrades, but Flashfield says, nope, I am not dealing with that. Normally I would try to use the Astrosphere on that weak point, but because the Flashfield, again, outclasses the Astrosphere, there's not really much concern to be had over there, and this just goes in the blink of an eye. Essentially, though, Jewel just got kidnapped by a resurrected Merrick, and now we need to get down to the bottom of things, try to rescue her, and hopefully also, you know, deal with any other resurrected adepts, because unfortunately it is boss rush time. Not in your traditional sense, though. Anyhow, I'm gonna say right now, this is probably my favorite stage in the game, period. So, this here involves a rain mechanic that will essentially give Gunvolt 2 different sorts of conditions. One where the wind is against him, and one where the wind is to his back. In this case, within the first section, I want to be on the ground as much as possible because my jumps will be shortened. This is basically Toadman from Mega Man 4, if you're familiar with that stage. But then, once I get to the second stage, it'll be all about me wanting to do as much jumping as possible. And we're going to get to that right now. Of course, it wouldn't be that simple. We actually have to go through 3 more of those upgraded Mantis tanks, unfortunately, but it won't be that big of a deal in easy mode. So I think this would actually be a great time to pass it on over to my host. And if we got any donations or announcements, let's hear them.
Hello! I wanted to add early on that with the lightning shield, I want to say that for the bosses it's quite the shocking experience!
Yes! I love me a good pun every once in a while.
So, we are actually collecting money. You can donate. Cool thing, because we're donating to the Little Warriors. For those who don't know, Little Warriors, they are a Canadian charitable organization based in Alberta, Canada, who are focused on the awareness, prevention, and treatment of child sexual abuse. Little Warriors volunteers work across Canada to educate adults to help prevent child sexual abuse by delivering the Prevented Workshop. The Little Warriors Prevented Workshop is an interactive workshop designed to educate adults to help prevent and respond to child sexual abuse through improving attitudes about knowledge of and behavior towards victims. This free workshop is unique in Canada and was developed using research-informed methods and evaluated with scientific rigor. Participants can take the 3-hour in-person workshop in the communities where there are active facilitators, or they can take the 90-minute online version by registering the Little Warriors website. Visit their website at www.littlewarriors.ca to learn more about their efforts and find out how you can help support their cause. Also, look, more bosses. That guy looks familiar.
So yeah, Merrick's now actually being fought. Unfortunately, Jewel is not within his possession. She's already been taken over to the orbital space station at the top of this huge tower because, of course they would. So yeah, it's now going to be our job to essentially do some boss refights and climb up to the top of the tower to hopefully save Jewel. And so I'm actually going to be fighting Stratos, Jota, and then Viper in that order. Normally, that would be a bit of a
a bit more of a serious time, because in that case you do not have a checkpoint until you defeat Viper. And considering Viper is normally one of the most casually difficult bosses to fight, period, or even in the speedrun for that matter, just because of how aggressive his moveset was programmed, yeah, normally that would be a cause of concern. Here, not so much. Just going to start by doing a little bug zapping. That's 1, 2, 3. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know. Alright, so that's one boss down, and just a couple more to go. Now, it wouldn't be that easy, because, wouldn't you know it, we also would have to face... Okay, I guess I'm astrospheering by circumstance again. As I was about to say, at the top of the elevator we will have to face Elise, and this time with a bit of an extra catch. I'll explain that one as we get into the boss fight, but... yeah, we're just going to let him see Phosphoratorium again, which special attacks sometimes have different move names depending on if you are looking at the text in English or Japanese, which is also evident by the Japanese voice acting, which clearly says something like Zero Blade in the case of Jota's final move. So, Gunvolt 1 and 2 never really got any English dubbing, and here's hoping one day they do, because I know there's a bit of interest in it. But here we have, see, there's another example, Refulgence, Sunshine Nova. The idea is that Inti Creates was supposed to have the voice actors say both localized versions of the special attack names, but they kind of ran out of time. So Gunvolt 2 and games beyond that do have that going for them. But otherwise, Director Suda apparently mandates certain characters to have different names, or special moves to have different names, just to avoid, I guess, copyright issues, at least in the case of the character names. That I can say for sure. Special move names, I have no idea. But yeah, here's Elise, and now there's a third one, and turns out that she cannot die. So I actually have to force a resurrection by defeating the first two Elises intentionally. And so that's important because it will then trigger a story event. So I actually got very lucky right there because the third one was in the middle of an action, and Elise will not resurrect the other as long as they're in the middle of an action. So as long as I'm careful that way, then there you go. That's how I should have taken care of the fight at first, but considering there was two of them, it would have been a little bit harder to go through, admittedly. Alright, Copen's back. Now he's got all Adept powers on his side, including a special move which we might not see, but he is in position to do it. Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, sir. He did have his hood down, though, so now we got to see what his face fully looked like, and there you have it. Yeah, Copen's not a bad fella. He's just very misguided by his revenge for Adepts because his father was a former Sumeragi scientist who essentially wanted to shut down the company's Adepts research knowing the dangers of such, but essentially got silenced. And unfortunately, the one that was responsible for Dr. Kamizono's death, because Copen's last name is Kamizono, would happen to be Asimov, Gunvolt's mentor and the leader of Quill. Not like we'll have to worry about that here, though, because we are in the final level, and we will be facing off against the leader of Sumeragi, Nova Tsukuyomi. First, we've got one more gauntlet room, and here is where I actually have to take care of enemies, because there is no alarm to be found. And so let's see if we can get the J-pop going, which should be doable. I mean, then again, this is easy mode. We've already seen it quite a few times as it is. But one thing to mention about those ninja enemies is that they are normally hard to take out because they're only vulnerable as long as they're either falling down or about to attack. If they are on the ground, they will just deflect any bullets I shoot at them, or just
hardly take any damage from the flash field. Alright, we're coming up to Nova himself. This boss will have 2 phases, and then when health runs out at the second phase, that will be time. So here's how this is going to work. I actually got to use the flash field to do exactly that. So you're probably wondering, what the heck was up with that? Unlike other bosses, Nova does not have iframes. Wait, get ready on time and time. That was quick. As I was about to say, Nova does not have iframes whenever he loses one of his health bars. Instead, he's completely vulnerable, and thus, in easy mode, it's just trivialized majorly, which is a shame because I personally think he's a wonderful boss. Just the way he's designed is kind of cool. But alas, that's the end of the run. And with that, I actually got to go to the end of the credits here, though, because in order to get my proper timing for the PC version, I actually have to save my progress. So let's go ahead and quickly get some shoutouts out of the way. So big shout out to the Gunvolt speedrunning community, which if you'd like to join our Discord, just go to any main Gunvolt game leaderboard page, and you should see our Discord link within that. And we are a very welcoming community. We also are welcome to any casual fans who just enjoy the game series on the whole, and we usually tend to talk about all sorts of stuff pertaining to the game, like trying to figure out any damage stats or little hidden Easter eggs and stuff like that. And overall, just a really cool community with some amazing runners like Ben Ha, Greenalink, Ajarmar, Tina Hacks, Errol, and all of them. And yeah, no, this was definitely a fun run to show off. This is actually the first time I'm displaying the category for any speedrun marathon, and I would like to thank the wonderful folks of Indiethon for having me once again. It's always a pleasure. I do want to just quickly check and see if that was a PB, because I think that is definitely a PB. Oh yeah, absolutely. PB by a few seconds apparently. That's funny. Let's go. So yeah, there you have it. What was my RTA time though?
Interesting. On screen it says 39:32.
Yeah, that's also a PB for RTA. So the PC and 3DS version are specifically timed by IGT just because of the way they were built. Simple as that. Alright, well, if you guys would like to check me out, my name is TempestMask1000 here on Twitch as well as on YouTube. And I also have a Twitter at @It'sTempestSteve, where I do post any stuff about myself, but also I usually put up stream updates there as well, because I'm not a static schedule streamer. I just do it whenever I can, and I'm always happy to do my part for events, because speedrunning is probably one of the most amazing communities to just put themselves out there for the sake of helping others. And Little Warriors, I gotta say, is probably becoming one of my personal favorite charities to help out for now, because I certainly hope that those affected by abuse get the healing that they need. And let's keep raising money for them, folks. With that said, I also want to say this is my final run before my birthday tomorrow at an event, so I'll be turning 26. No longer will I be 25. So until that's going to do it for me otherwise. That's all I really wanted to say. Also, here's Pupvolt. Made sense for him to show up. And yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Incredible job, Tempest. Thank you very, very much for being a